So let me ask you a question. What actually makes something good? Is a thing good just because God says it is? Or does God tell us something is good because it already is?
And this is where it all started. This question right here, first asked by Socrates in one of Plato's ancient dialogues. Okay, so let's bring it into a modern context. It boils down to this. Is something good because God commands it, or does God command it because it is good? See what it does? It forces you to pick a side, to go into one of two corners. And here's the real catch. Either option you choose creates a huge problem for the traditional way we think about God.
Right, so let's explore the first side of this dilemma, the first horn. This is the idea that good and evil are these fixed, objective standards that exist completely on their own outside of God. And God, because he is good, just follows those rules like everyone else. So let's go with this first option. God commands what is good because it is good. I mean, that sounds pretty reasonable, right? It kind of frames God as the perfect moral being, always choosing the right answer because that answer already exists. But, and this is a big but, this seemingly safe path walks us straight into a major theological headache. And that headache is all about power. You see, if morality is some independent standard that even God has to obey, then God isn't really all-powerful, is he? There's something, this moral law, that's above God, something God didn't create, and more importantly, can't change. And that's a direct challenge to the whole idea of omnipotence. Okay, so that first horn is tricky. What if we try going the other way? Let's take a look at the second horn of the dilemma. This is the world where morality doesn't even exist until God invents it. In this view, God isn't a follower of moral rules. God is the one who writes the entire rulebook. So what about this other path? What if something is good simply because God commands it? Well, this definitely seems to solve our power problem, right? God is now the ultimate source of absolutely everything, including morality. But in solving that one issue, it creates an even bigger, more trolling one for the idea of God's goodness. And here is the, frankly, terrifying consequence of taking this path. If goodness is just whatever God happens to will, then morality becomes completely arbitrary. It means that if God commanded us to be cruel, then, by definition, cruelty would become good. The commands aren't based on any reason, they just are. And this totally guts the meaning of the phrase, God is good. It becomes a hollow, circular statement. It's just a tautology. Saying God is good means nothing more than God wills what God wills. Praising God for being good becomes completely empty because goodness is just a label for whatever he decides to command. So here's the whole trap in its simplest, starkest form. You choose horn 1, that God commands good because it's good, and you save God's goodness, but you put his omnipotence into question. Or you choose horn 2, that good is good because God commands it, and you save his omnipotence, but you completely undermine his goodness. It's a brutal choice. Ultimately, the Euthyphro dilemma is so much more than just some abstract philosophical puzzle. You can think of it as a stress test for one of humanity's most foundational concepts. It asks a tough question. Can the idea of a single being who is both all-powerful and perfectly good even hold together logically? And that's the ultimate question we're left with. You see, the point of the dilemma isn't really to prove or disprove God's existence. It's about asking if the very concept we've built is logically coherent. Can one being truly possess both absolute unlimited power and meaningful objective goodness? One of the most popular solutions goes something like this. Morality isn't some external rulebook, and it's not just an arbitrary whim either. Instead, morality is grounded in the very character or nature of God, a nature that is said to be fundamentally good, loving, and totally unchangeable. But does that really solve the problem, or does it just push it back a step? You have to ask, could God's nature have been different? If the answer is no, it couldn't be different, then aren't we back to some kind of limit on God's power? And if the answer is yes, it could have been different, well then aren't we right back to arbitrariness? The dilemma just seems to pop up again. Okay, so there is another, more complex escape route that tries a totally different tactic. This one makes a really key distinction between our idea of something, what we call its concept, and what that thing actually is in reality, its property. Stay with me here. Here's a perfect analogy to explain it. For thousands of years, people had the concept of water. It's wet, you can drink it, etc. Much later, science discovered that the underlying property of all water is H2O.
The argument here is that good and what God wills are just like that. They're two totally different concepts that actually point to the exact same thing in reality.
So here's how that argument unfolds. First, we all have a concept of goodness, right? We have it even if we don't think about God. But, this argument claims, the actual property out there in the universe that our concept of good refers to is the property of being willed by God. Now, if that's true, then saying God is good isn't a meaningless circle. No, it becomes a profound discovery, just like discovering that the liquid you've always called water is actually H2O.